So, welcome to this episode of the Down the Pool podcast. We are joined by Irish football legend and ice skating novice, Kevin Kilbane. Welcome to the show, my man. How's it going?
Everything's great. Yeah, it's a good description. Yeah, less the legend, I suppose. Keep the ice skating novice more to the point. Yeah, that'll be the one.
And we're also joined by Chris and Carlos, as always. Welcome back to the show, guys.
Cheers, fellas. Cheers. I thought we were going to avoid the whole ice skating thing, but here we are, about 10 seconds into the show.
Yeah, I've tried to avoid it for the last 6 months, but I can't get away from it. So there you go.
Who knows? Maybe he's gonna be in skating with the stars or something.
Oh, yeah, the Canadian version, right?
The Canadian version, yeah.
So, first question I have for you, Kev, is how are you enjoying life in Canada?
Yeah, I'm loving it. I mean, it's been a crazy 8 months since I arrived. I arrived in Canada on the 13th of March. It was literally 2 days before Toronto airport closed down. So I arrived in from Dublin on the Friday the 13th. It was probably a sign of things to come, wasn't it, with that date? So, yeah, everything. I mean, we know the way that it's been. It's held up quite a lot of things for me personally, but you know, I'm grateful for what I have over here, and I've got to be thankful of that because there's so many people across the world that have had so many troubles and so much heartache, hasn't there? So, I'm in answer to your question, I'm loving it. But it was a weird time to get over here. Yeah.
Hashtag super spreader. It's all you, man. We were great until you came. So just I know I saw you on Twitter there. You were quite vocal about the penalty that Tottenham got against Brighton on the weekend.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, there was also the free kick that should have been given to Tottenham for the Brighton goal. Ian Wright was calling for the ref to be suspended rather than sending them down to the lower leagues. Do you think that's a thing that they should be doing? Like it's like when referees have an awful game like that, or do you think that?
Well, do you know, with that, I think that decision, certainly the Harry Kane penalty that was given, I think that there's still a lot of people that will be split on it. A lot of it, you know, you'll obviously speak to biased Tottenham supporters and things like that would always say, no, clear penalty, you know, but that is, you know, that's a professional footballer's foul. You know exactly what you're doing. You're looking at the guy, waiting for him to jump or waiting for him, because you could see Lallana what he was doing. Lallana's going for the ball. You know as well with it that you're endangering an opponent. You are putting him at risk of injury with that type of foul as well. And I honestly don't think referees would know that. Referees, when they're refereeing a game, they're trying to, obviously, there's a lot to take in when you're refereeing a game, and a lot of players are mouthing off and things like this as the game's going ahead. But I don't think referees would actually see that, because how VAR hasn't overturned that, clearly, if you look at it, as if someone sat in there in the know would know clearly that is a 100% foul. It's not even a doubt. Honest to God, it's not even a doubt. It's a foul. Kane knows what he's doing, and he bought a penalty. And you think clever play, and that's the sort of terms I've heard mentioning around this. But it's a foul, and that should never have ever been given a penalty. And as I said, it's endangering Lallana, because you can see the way that he falls. He's falling from such a height when he's just going clearly looking at the ball to go and head it. And Kane's bought his team a penalty with that one. I didn't see what Ian Wright had said, actually. I think it's quite harsh sometimes when you call for referees to be suspended, but that type of foul has been going on for years. But you know, maybe the position that I played over the years as well, you know, on kick-outs, when you'd be trying to challenge for kick-outs and you get fullbacks that would stop you on your run or obstruct you before you can even get anywhere near the ball. And referees don't see it. Referees don't understand maybe that sort of intricate or clever foul from a fullback or from a defender during a game. And I think that was something that Kane bought there. So you say fair play to him, it got Tottenham the points in the end. But that is a sort of foul that referees should instantly see. And I think if you've got somebody in the know that's on the panel there with the VAR, I think they would see that clearly too.
So I guess Wrighty was more freaking out about the Brighton goal because he said that the referee went over and looked at it and still gave the goal, and I think that's where they were like really, really angry. Like, I mean, like if you look at the foul in Højbjerg, it was, I mean, anybody would have given that as a foul. Yeah,
do you know what though? I think maybe I was in favour of it last season as well, clearly saying, look, a referee should go over and view the monitor. You remember last year when referees weren't even going and viewing the monitor, which is crazy in itself. But But I can imagine a referee, you know, when you're in that moment, I think he probably start to doubt himself. Has he seen it right? Does he really want to overturn a decision that he gave when he's thinking, I'm in that moment, I'm on the spot, that's the decision that I gave and I've got to go with that. I think that's what's maybe in a referee's mindset at times, when they've almost got to maybe just let the moment settle for themselves, view it as if they're in a different place, that they've not made that decision. And I think they would probably come to a different conclusion. So I think referees and the education around referees probably has to maybe change their mindset. That's the way that I think it is at the moment. Because I think the way that we saw last season, it was almost in defiance at times. It was like, no, it's them against us. They're coming against us for decisions. When we're all watching the game at time thinking, it's crazy. You're not viewing it. You're not actually taking that step back out. VAR is getting so many things wrong. So I think by going over and viewing it is the correct decision. But sometimes I just think maybe the heart race is going a bit too much and they're in that moment and it's difficult for them to overturn it. So there's maybe still a number of things that VAR has to improve on, but I do feel we are in the right direction. I wouldn't want to be too critical of referees constantly, because in that moment, I think it's a difficult one for them to overturn.
Yeah, totally makes sense. I guess like with Formula One, they all, like, the stewards are ex-drivers, so it kind of would make sense, I guess, to have on the panel like an ex.
I mean, I'm not. I think sometimes it's easy to say, look, you need ex-players on that panel. It's not even players that's played at a high level. It's players that's played at any level. Players, whether you're playing Sunday league football sometimes, or whether you're playing, whether you're playing lower league, non-league football over in England, or however it would be, amateur standard. You know what you're doing on a football pitch. Referees in general have been geared towards refereeing from the age of 9 and 10 years of age, because you've got to go through a system. It takes such a long time to get to a certain level of refereeing at Premier League standards. So that's my problem with it at the moment. They know the laws of the game. They're spot on every little thing that goes. If you could ask them any minor detail on the laws of the game and sometimes what a foul and what isn't. But it's the things that I think referees miss, and that type of thing, certainly with, in my mind, what the Kane incident would be more than anything. I know sometimes you look at things, lads are going in for 50-50, there's a high leg. We've all been there. We've all done that type of thing. And sometimes you can't help yourself when you're playing. You look back at some incident when I was playing, certainly, and I think, God, how the hell have I done that? Why have I led with an elbow there? You're not meaning to do it, but it's just you're going with an innocent challenge. You're challenging honestly for the ball. And sometimes referees, I don't feel as though that they honestly get themselves in a player's mindset, and they don't. And there's not as much. I mean, I go back 20 years that I was playing professional football. I didn't have too many discussions away from the football field with referees, i.e. them coming into the dressing room and talking to us about decisions that's being made and having an open discussion that then it can be a two-way thing. That sort of thing doesn't happen. And I think there's got to be a lot more of that.
So just before I pass to Carlos, sorry. Obviously last night United had an awful time of it again. There's talk today again about Ollie maybe getting the bullet. So what do you think? Do you think he's in jeopardy? And what do you think he needs to change with the team?
Well, I think there's been a lot wrong at United now. We're going back since Ferguson, aren't we? We know that the buying big and the whole decision making within the club seems to be wrong. How they've gone about it. They've, as I said, buying big wages. It's not always the way to do it, and we know that. If you look at the history of football, if you even look at the way that Ferguson did things, yes, he did spend big at times, but it wasn't always about paying huge wages and huge salaries for players. It was maybe about a manager having control of a team, and the team almost playing for him and playing for each other. I don't think they've had that at United for a long time, so it's going to take a long time to reverse the way things have been going for them over the last 6 or 7 years, 8 years, whatever it was, since Ferguson's gone, because that's been the policy of the club. So I feel sorry for him, just as I felt sorry for Moyes, Mourinho and Van Gaal. Highly paid, yes, but they're on a hiding to nothing, because it's the clearly falling behind year upon year with what's been set in the club, with the way that they're going about their business. I'm talking about the way that the recruitment's going about, the way that the team's being coached. Everything is different from the top 4, the top 6 teams, from City, from Liverpool, from Tottenham. from all the top clubs that surround them. They're doing things differently, and they seem to have fallen behind. That's why I feel it's going to be quite a while before they get back to the level. So is it going to be get rid of Ollie and then somebody else comes in? If that were to be the case, they need a whole change on the whole coaching structure, the whole recruitment structure. Everything's got to be changed with the club. And that's why I think it might take 6 or 7 years. Someone said about a year after Ferguson had gone, we may see Man United being like Liverpool from the late 80s, early 90s, when they went so long. And I think so many people laughed at that. But
not me. I'm a United supporter, Kevin, and it was my biggest fear. Like, here we are.
I think if you're looking at it when the year Ferguson retired, I don't think any of us thought, look, it's going to be 20 years until they win another Premier League title. I didn't think it'd be that long. But now you're starting to realise that how far they are falling behind year upon year. They've got an awful lot of quality. We can clearly see that. They've got exceptional footballers within the side, but it seems they're buying an individual. The policy is individuals rather than having a team plan that's going to be keeping 25 players happy within the structure of the club. And that's where United have always been. Yet they've gone away from that. That's why they're falling behind, and it's going to be a long road until they get back to the rest of the big clubs in England, let alone the big clubs in Europe.
Yeah, somebody did say like that. It's almost like somebody comes available, they just try and buy them. They need them or not. It's kind of ridiculous. Carlos, far away there, man.
This is back to the VAR question, Kevin, that we were talking earlier. One of the first questions that Anthony mentioned it. And this is more like a personal question for you. In terms of VAR, do you think that it should be a policy to follow? Because I noticed, like, I'm from South America, and the VAR, the way that they use it is terrible. Yeah. Especially now in the South American qualifiers. They were like a couple penalties that they weren't a penalty. Yeah. It was like massively proved. But the thing is, what they're doing now is they're posting what the VAR refs in the rooms with the computers are saying and putting the audio just to kind of like cover the controversy of what it's talking about, which could be doing in pre-production or post-production, you know what I mean? But my question to you is, do you think that it should be a rule in terms of how many camera angles should the referee check? Because I noticed that when they go to the machine and they check it, okay, just they give in a couple shots, but they don't get sometimes like the camera that is in front of the player because it's clearly the most accurate one that you want to see. And I don't know if it's controversial or not, but I want to see what's your take on that.
Yeah, no, it's a great point that sometimes when you're seeing the angles that a referee is going to view is different from the angles that we're seeing at home as well. I think for the sake of the game, we've all got to be on the same page, whether that's the viewer on TV, whether it's the supporter in the stadium, the player, and the referee themselves or the officials. We've all got to be on the same page, because clearly we'll all have our decisions, we'll all have our mindset on what is a right and a wrong decision. But sometimes it's too clear. It's too clear for a referee to go against what we're all seeing, and that's where these outcries come about. Where, as I was saying before, I think it's more in defiance from the referee. I'm sure that they have these meetings where they'll speak about players in general, and they'll go, look, no, it's them against us, or it's them. They have their way of thinking, we have our way of thinking. Rather than just sometimes it's not hard just to come together, have that discussion. Some of the best referees that I would have had, and honestly, some of them would have been considered arrogant when I would have played, like someone like Graham Poll, Mark Clattenburg, some of the referees. But honestly, they used to talk to you and they'd have a laugh with you on the pitch as well. Some of the decisions that they made were ridiculous, and some of the things that they did on a pitch were ridiculous, but they would honestly talk to you. And what I found towards the back end of my career, I found that referees were not having these discussions with you anymore. The personal side of it was actually going away from it. So it was almost becoming a broken thing 10 years ago. And I think that's the state that we're in now, that any sort of player that says anything wrong to a referee will just give them a yellow card, rather than just have that little bit of free talk between the two of them. It just seems it's blown up into nothing at times. And that's where I think. But to your point, what you're saying there, I totally agree. Sometimes it doesn't seem we're all on the same page with the angles that we're seeing, and I think we make it difficult for referees rather than make it easy with the VAR decisions that are being made. Rather, as I was saying as well, sorry, that if you give a clear angle that we can all see, and we all on the same page, you say, yeah, that's a clear decision, get that made, or that needs to be made. Someone's in the rear talking to the referee. We all know what's happening then. Just one point what you made there about that you're hearing what the VAR officials are saying to the referee. I wouldn't be in favour of that, simply because I think that leads to embarrassment. It leads to so much scrutiny. We can see the pictures with the VAR decision. I don't think you need the words to go with that, and that's how I'd feel personally on that one. Anyway, I certainly don't want to see referees mic'd up. I don't want to see that. I don't think it's necessary. I really don't think that personally.
Definitely, but that is how it's been doing in CONMEBOL in South America. That's how they're doing, because there were so many penalties that were called.
I'm not, and you're asking me, but I've not watched too much South American club football for a long time. Over the years, I would have watched bits of the Copa Libertadores, the South American Championship. So, I don't know how it's done, but I'd be interested to maybe have a little look now, actually, and see how they are doing it. I'll be able to get a few clips of that just to see how it's going about. Yeah.
And this leads to my second question in regards to VAR, to just like to cut it off, just the topic in terms of, do you think like nowadays referees, before it used to be controversial about the eye of the referee. Then VAR came up and said like, okay, it's going to be a huge tool for the referee, because the referee is the one that makes a call and then he relies on the VAR. Yeah. However, do you think that VAR now, it's killing the war of refereeing in terms of not calling the right calls, just the way of how cards are booked? I feel like now the refs are giving, as you mentioned it before, more yellows and red than they used to be. Yeah. Obviously, when it's a red and it's a big chop, yes, of course, it's a straight red. But I feel like now there's like so many unnecessary yellows in the modern game.
I totally agree. Honestly, I totally agree, right? And honestly, I don't know if anyone watched the Everton game at the weekend. I watched Everton at the weekend, right? And Decore was booked. I can't remember. It was quite late on in the game, I think. And all it was the Newcastle player run across Decore. That's all he did. He run across him. Decore had absolutely no chance of getting out of the way, but he was booked for it. And these sort of yellow cards now, in my eyes, are thinking,
it wasn't a yellow for me.
It's not a yellow card though. It isn't. It's an unintentional foul. It's a foul, yes, but it's just a foul and get on with the game. But every foul now, if a player goes to ground, if a player runs across an opponent, if a player obstructs an opponent, the yellow cards. Now, if the clear and blatant, yes, they should be yellow cards. I get that. If they're endangering an opponent, yes, clear yellow card. But every decision, even on penalties with goalkeepers coming off the line, how can you book a goalkeeper for coming off the line on a penalty? He's making himself as big as possible. The advantage is always with the striker of the ball. Is it 75, 80% chance of scoring a goal from a penalty? The goalkeeper has got a small chance of saving it. Yet if he steps 1 inch off his line, he's getting booked for it. It's a joke, because that sort of thing, it's so hard for a goalkeeper to prevent from doing at times, because his instinct is to dive forward and make the save. So these are the sort of things where it's booking for booking's sake now. And I personally think it's making the game worse for that, because it's leading to, obviously, as you say, more red cards for 2 silly yellow card decisions that I think one of them, or maybe both of them, could be preventable.
Definitely. I definitely agree with those points. Thank you very much for giving us your take on that. Go for it, Chris.
No bothers.
Well, since we're talking about laws of the game, I know you've been outspoken in the past about the control that like agents have on the game. It's more or less flipped now. Teams don't have any control. It's the players, and their agents are just kind of, I guess you could say, pulling the puppet strings, if you will. How do you figure FIFA, or I guess more specifically UEFA, because that's where most of the issues are, tackle this issue going forward, now that money is going to be such a big deal in the game over the next couple of years with COVID?
Yeah, well, the legislation on agents, it changed a few years. It's changed a few times, probably in the last 20 years, maybe since I started playing as well. At one time, it's fully licensed agents. Then they got away from that. UEFA and FIFA came away from that sort of policy that basically you or I could just basically take a player in and be their agent. And it seems crazy to me that you can have this, because you know that at times there's only one person in mind of the agent, and it's not necessarily, it's rarely the player. Some of the bigger agents. I think that the problem always came from, I mean, I don't know, maybe some of you guys may know where I came from in my career. I started in the very lower tier of English football. And what I was finding when I first went into football, it was a long time ago now, 1993, there were players that refuse to sign a contract for a certain club at lower levels and even at the top level in those times, and a club could freeze them, freeze them out of anything. They'd make them train with the youth team. They'd be having to train till 5 and 6 in the evening. They weren't allowed home to see the family, and they were treated terribly. It was a joke the way that it was, where players had no control over it whatsoever. Then, of course, the Bosman ruling came in, where it's only gone one way since then. Since the Bosman ruling came in, it's gone one way, and it has probably gone too much now. It's gone too far, where clubs now talk about, and have always spoken about, loyalty. Clubs are not loyal to players. I think everybody accepts that. Supporters scream for it. And when you're a young boy, when you're coming into a team, your intentions are to play football, do the best you can, earn your contract. But as you progress through your career, you do become more cynical. You see the way that players are treated by certain clubs. And I think this is where we've got to now. It's a standoff now where agents have capitalised on that massively because of how ill-treated players were prior to the Bosman ruling. And now it's too much power. And I think you're spot on what you're saying. We're seeing, over the next few years, with the amount of money that's gone into agents' fees, that's been taken out of the game, and we're seeing so many clubs now under the Premier League going under year upon year, or potentially going under, but year upon year, that potential has been there now. Certainly in the last 10 years, it seems to be more and more. Money's going out of the game when it should be staying within the game, whether that's at the professional level or certainly filtering down to grassroots level as well. Too much money is leaving the game on agents' fees, and I think it's going to be difficult again for FIFA, UEFA, whoever it would be that's going to be legislating these policies. But there has to be something done that's going to get a hold of agents and get hold of the power that they've got within the game, because they're literally running football clubs now. They're running they're running transfer policies of certain football clubs, and we know within that it leads to problems with finances, i.e., money leaving the game. Some of it has over the years. I'm not saying it all the time with certain agents. It has left the game illegally, and this is the problem, that it can lead to this illegal movement of money because of unregistered and unlegislated agents.
Fantastic answer. Well, I guess moving on to your career, you were just talking about how you started in the lower ranks, if you will, and you're a Preston boy. You started with Preston North End, and over the last few years, they've been able to accumulate and acquire a fantastic squad. What do you think that Trevor Hemmings has to do to get the guys into the Premier League? And do you think that if they kind of rush, if you will, that they could end up back in a worse situation than they were in a few years ago?
Well, I think most clubs that have gone up over the last few years, I think they've done it right. If you look at someone like, if I'm looking at someone on a very similar size to Preston and Burnley would be almost identical in stature and everything. But what Burnley did, and I spoke to a lot of people around Burnley Football Club when they first got promoted, was, look, if we go up, we're going to go down, which they did in the first season, if anyone remembered. And we're gonna try to stabilise the club over 5 years. Initially, it was 5 years. If we get back up in our first season, great. And Burnley, of course, have gone on. They've built a new training ground. They've got a legacy now from being in the Premier League for that one season that they were in there. They did it wrong the first time 10, 15 years ago when they first got to the Premier League, but they certainly did it differently. So there's a lot of clubs that have got promoted and done it right. And Preston, if they were to get up now, I think it's going to be difficult, really, really difficult, because of the clubs that get relegated have the parachute payments. Their budgets are way and above a club like Preston, because Preston have never been into the Premier League to get any sort of money financially from the parachute payment. So I think they've done it well. Honestly, I do. I know Trevor. I've known Trevor virtually my whole life, essentially. He used to watch me playing on Trevor Hemmings, that is. He used to watch me playing on the park pitches in Preston when I was 7, 8 and 9 years of age. So he's known me a long time. I've got a lot of respect for him. All chairmen and all owners of football clubs are going to take a lot of stick and a lot of abuse, but his heart's in the right place. He does everything with the best intention for Preston North End, but it's getting more difficult year upon year. They've got the right manager in place, and I think the best that Preston could hope for at the moment with the budget they've got is staying up in the Championship. There may be someone that comes in with finances to take the club forward and take it off Mr. Hemmings' hands in the next few years, but it's going to be very difficult for a club like Preston to get promoted, because you only need to look at Sheffield Wednesday, who are a huge club in the Championship, and where they've been, Leeds United, who have managed to get back. There's some huge clubs that are not in the Premier League now that are teetering every single year on going into administration. If Sheffield Wednesday and all these other clubs have all been there. So it's so difficult, I think. And Preston are competing in a market where really they shouldn't be competing because of the finances dictate otherwise.
So talk about the club coming up. It's where you started your career. I'm guessing is where you got your education, or were you at a club before you were at Preston?
No. I grew up. I mean, my background is saying I'm from. First of all, I would always see myself as Irish first and foremost. That's how I was as a kid. Both parents Irish. Moved to England. You know, so we're very much a very poor Irish family growing up. My brother and I grew up playing street football. That's how we grew up playing. I played with older kids. My brother's a couple of years older than me, and he was an excellent footballer in himself. So I learned everything probably from him growing up and the people that were around me from playing street football as a kid. So I went straight into, well, you weren't, in those days you couldn't sign for a team until you were 14 at schoolboy level, but I was associated with Preston from when I was 10 years of age. I was playing 3 or 4 years above my age group for a while. I was playing under 12 football at Preston when I was 10. So I was lucky that I was playing for a good club at the time and, you know, managed to progress. And as I said, signed schoolboy forms at 14. And then at the time it was called a YTS scheme, apprenticeships now and things like that at 16, and then professional at 18. So my progression was steady, and it was great to be at a club like Preston and work my way through the system. And that's how it was. I said I grew up a Celtic fan. Actually, my dream was to play for Celtic. That's the club I wanted to play for. Okay. And I grew up wanting to. Well, my dream ultimately was always to play for Ireland. That was the number one dream for both my brother and I when we were kids. But Celtic was my team. Yeah, Celtic was my club. And I had a couple of opportunities to go during my playing days, but anyway, it never quite happened in the end. But but that was it, really. Yeah.
Cheers. Go ahead, Anthony.
I didn't know that you had a chance to go to Celtic. That would have been awesome. The
smile he had.
Just speaking about Ireland, you got 110 caps or something. That's crazy. Obviously Stephen Kenny's come in as Irish manager. How do you feel things are going? And do you see it? He has a plan of where he wants to get us.
Yeah, he certainly has a plan. There has been a bit of negativity around the performances in the last few games since he's taken over. I've been quite happy with the way that it's gone. It was always going to be difficult for his first 4 or 5 games, simply because he was thrown in the deep end. We had that big playoff game straight away, and he had a couple of the Nations League games to prepare for it. So although we're not scoring goals, I feel as though we've been creating chances. I feel as though we've been, if you look at the Slovakia game, I felt we should have won that game across 90 minutes. We certainly should have won it across 120 minutes. And to lose on penalties was heartbreaking when I was watching the match. So I felt there was a lot of positives in that game. I really did think that. But a lot of the other games there's been times when you're watching it, I honestly, and I'd feel as though that the ball could be moved forward a little bit quicker. I'm not saying lump it from back to front, but I'm saying pass forward along the ground a lot quicker. If you look at the best sides around at the moment, they're passing forward quickly, and that's the way that I'd feel as though that can be improved. But there's been a lot of improvement in performances. I really do think that. But goals have been a problem for us for 15, 20 years. It's not a new thing. Stephen Kenny's now coming. We're all getting to the stage now where we know full well what we need. Defensively, we've been quite sound. We have been sound prior to Stephen Kenny taking over. But I do feel there's a plan in place. I do genuinely feel that. I think Stephen Kenny has got the players behind him. He's got the belief of everybody around him. There's still a few doubters, don't get me wrong, supporters-wise, but I do feel that he will get it right. And I think long-term, if we're looking at certain managers that have taken jobs who have had a tough start, you don't need to look no further than all our managers. Jack Charlton had an awful start. Mick McCarthy had an awful start. And if we're looking closer to home as well, Michael O'Neill, who did a great job with Northern Ireland, had an awful start, struggled really badly for his first 10 games. So I think we're playing better than all those names I've mentioned there, and they all went on to have good careers at international level. So I feel as though Stephen Kenny's got the team in a decent place, and I think he'll be quite happy going forward for what's to come. Yeah.
So you mentioned there about the lack of a scoring threat. It's, as you said, it's been since Robbie Keane pretty much was kind of getting older. We've never really had anybody else to fill the void.
Yeah.
Do you think that, like, obviously with all the stuff happening with the FAI, with John Delaney taking all the money that he wants and all that kind of stuff, do you think that there was a lack of money going into the underage system to help develop these players that we need for the next generation?
Do you know what? I think I do feel it was always difficult to produce players. We know where we are. That the problem was there were so many of so many of our players, since I can remember, going back to even before I was born and before you and I were born. The mark or the level of an Irish player has always been, you grow up in Ireland, you go to England as quickly as possible. We've never seriously gone and thought we need to develop our talent domestically now. We've got to start producing players that might be playing at 16 and 17 in the League of Ireland, that are playing men's football. So when they get to 2021, they might not necessarily be of a technical level compared to some of the Premier League players, but they have got the advantage of playing men's football, competitive football, for a lot longer than the players of their age. And that's where I feel that we're maybe getting to that level now. Certainly Stephen Kenny will try to push for that. If you're looking about the infrastructure of some of the players, realistically, we've got Aaron Connolly, we've got Adam Ida, we've got Malumbi, we've got several players now that have come through the system. Troy Parrott be another one as well. We're looking to him to see how he progresses well in the next few years. We've got players that maybe, if you're looking back over the last 20 years, are not at that level or for their age. So we've done something okay. We have done something okay. Personally, I don't think that's solely been down to what the FAI have done at underage level, simply because if you look across our history, we've always produced players. We always were producing players. It's just the opportunity for our Irish players now, over in England especially, is becoming limited because there's less chance for the English players, there's less chance for Scottish players, for Welsh players. So in turn, we're going to be falling down the pecking order as well. So that is why I think it's a must that we start to try to produce our players to get them level for the League of Ireland, get them ready, for the League of Ireland level. Get the heads right on that. Don't go to England too early. Stay in Ireland for maybe a year or two extra. Play some football. Help develop yourself personally, like maybe with your education. And I think you'll be a more rounded individual when and if the chance comes to England, when you're 19 and 20.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I mean, like, that's how Roy Keane did it pretty much. He was at Cove and all that kind of stuff. He was playing men's football before he headed over. So just for yourself, when you hung up your boots, you went off to university and got your media degree and all that kind of stuff. Was that always the plan? Or I know you did some of your UEFA licenses. Did you plan to get into coaching like Duffer and Robbie Keane?
No, coaching. Yeah, well, I was coaching at Hull. I had the reserves at Hull for a year as well, which I really enjoyed. I actually did love it when I was coaching there. But, circumstances in my life changed as well. So I had to think about things a little bit differently. I didn't think I was going to go into media. I didn't think I was going to coaching. Honestly, I think what I wanted to do initially when I finished was, look, I need to take a bit of time out. I want to take a year out. I want to just maybe live a little as well, start to go and travel a little bit and start to see different things. And I didn't get the opportunity to do that. And that was the thing that I kind of fell into media after, long story short, I had a bad back injury that was maybe hindering me for a few years before the end of my career. The last year, I had a serious operation on my back. So I then took Hull City's reserve team for a season, as I was saying before. When I got myself fit, I got offered a playing contract at Coventry, which I never should have taken. But I thought, I was still fit enough to, I could outrun anyone if you're going to give me any sort of running on a training ground. But my legs weren't physically up to the demands of playing a game. I felt as though I'd lost all the power in my legs. My pace had certainly gone at that stage as well. So I should never have taken the contract, but I felt as though that I was fit enough to do so. And maybe one or two of the tests that I was doing pre-season suggested that I was right to take it. But I knew full well after about 6 or 7 games that I wasn't right to continue. So when I retired then, I was in a different position and I decided to take a few of the media roles that I was offered, and I really enjoyed it. So I went from there, really. I moved back to Ireland then in 2016 and I lived there for 4 years before moving here to Canada. So yeah, it was very different for me, but I didn't really have any sort of mindset that I'm going to do this or that, but I just kind of fell into it, I suppose, and it happened for me.
Amazing. Far away there, Carlos.
Yeah. Since we're talking about careers in football, I want to nerd out a little bit and talk to you about the World Cup in Korea, Japan, 2002. you were in the group phase with Saudi Arabia and Germany.
Yeah.
And then Cameroon too. First of all, Cameroon. How was facing Samuel Eto'o? It was just
Samuel
like
Eto'o, yeah. Well, he was. You know what? At the time, he wasn't as obviously a bigger superstar as he went on to become a few years later. They had some. Mboma was one of the best players. They had Jeremy playing in that Cameroon side. Cameroon were African champions. So Cameroon came in as certainly the favourites from Africa. They were probably amongst the top 10 favourites then. So they were feared by a lot of sides, and they were our opening team in that World Cup. And we were probably a little bit. I know for a fact I was extremely nervous. You know, I was saying before, all I wanted to do was play for Ireland, but play for Ireland in a World Cup was the ultimate dream. That's all I wanted to do as a boy. After watching Italia '90 when I was 13, all I wanted to do was play for Ireland in a World Cup. Seeing the Irish team there with the supporters, that was it. That was the ultimate for me. So I remember the first game, standing for the anthem, the build up to the game. Really, incredibly nervous. I really got nervous after the age of 20, but for that first World Cup game, as you probably can imagine, if I take myself out of it, of the situation that I was in, it's understandable. You're going to feel nervous. So I certainly was, and I think a lot of the team felt that way. And we didn't play well first half. Cameroon went a goal up, and then second half, or at half time, we went in. Mick McCarthy just said to us, "Look, just lads, you're better than this, of course. Just show what you were showing for the last 2 years when we played against the Dutch and we played against the Portuguese. Just relax and show them what you can." And second half we played well. We got a draw out the game, then we got another draw out the Germany game, which was our second match, and we beat the Saudis. And so we never felt inferior. You know, that was a thing at the time. We outplayed Germany for probably 70 minutes of the game that we played against them, and so. We were then on course. If we were going to meet Germany again, it would have been a semi-final. And, you know, believe it or not, we were thinking that way. We should have beat Spain when we went out on penalties in that World Cup. We were the better team again from probably 20, 25 minutes onwards. We should have won that match. So I think you look back on my career, you look back on any career, you'll have, I should have done this, I should have done that. And that was the one regret, maybe losing that Spain game, because we had a great chance to get to a World Cup semi-final or even a final in that World Cup, because it was so open, and we had a brilliant side that should have taken us there as well. But playing in that World Cup is the ultimate. In my mind, playing the World Cup, it's the ultimate for any player. That's how I felt as a kid growing up. I fell in love with Diego Maradona from Mexico '86 when I was 8 or 9. That was it. That's all I wanted to do then from that moment then, was playing World Cups. And fortunately, I got the opportunity to play in one.
And you face in the World Cup, in the group phase, you face pretty much the Germany of Ballack, Oliver Kahn, Miroslav Klose. Those end up in the final against Brazil. And also, I remember, if I'm not mistaken, in that match, you guys lost in penalties, as you were mentioning, also with against Spain. That was the Spain of Raúl, Hierro, Luis Enrique, like really good players. And Casillas was debuting in the nets in Spain. And also, if I'm not mistaken, that game, they lost against Korea. They were eliminated. They went to penalties, I think. Or it was like that. So you guys kind of like had like a 50-50 chance in the World Cup. You know, nobody knows that, and you guys did a great campaign. Moving forward a little bit after the World Cup, just want to ask you, how was playing against my top number 9 striker of all time, Ronaldo? You faced Ronaldo in 2004, Ronaldinho. Said Roberto. Roberto Carlos. That was, to me, like one of the top Brazil since I was born, you know, because I'm not that old to see Pelé play. But like after that, like Ronaldo, it's kind of like, to me, the best 9 I ever seen.
I'd agree. Ronaldo's probably the best 9 I've seen. In my lifetime, Ronaldo's the best 9, I think. Absolutely is. Because of, you know, his pace and his power. Obviously, he had injuries that hindered him through the latter part of his career. But to see that team come to Dublin, it was very special to play that team. Ronaldinho, as you say. I mean, you know, you look back on your career, you played against some superstars. I've been fortunate to play against Messi, Cristiano, Ronaldo, obviously Ronaldo, Zidane, you know, Henry. You name it, you go through all the players, and it was, you know, you look back. and you think you played against some of the greats of the game. But that team coming to Dublin, yes, it was a great night. It was a special night with, as you say, Ronaldinho, and who I would totally agree as saying the best number 9 that I saw through my lifetime. As you say, I never saw Pele. I never saw some of but Ronaldo was special. He was so special. I used to love watching him play. Yeah.
And one last one. I'm asking you, like, you were a former player, like brilliant for Ireland, and they always say that the first match in the World Cup is the most important one because it's how you set up through your group stage. You have to either win it or you either had a draw. You guys had a 1-1 against Cameroon. You think that kind of like mentally helped you guys to move towards the next match against Germany, because Germany was the second in that World Cup. Like it was just a great team, you know.
Yeah, they're spot on. It's exactly right. I think our mindset coming into the game as well, rather than think, right, we're going to go and win in this Cameroon game, it was a little bit of don't lose this game. I think that maybe crept into our mindset that hindered us, as I was saying before, in that first half, because we went out with a mentality of, look, if we get something from the game, we've got a great chance of qualifying. And we were very poor in the first half. I don't think Cameroon were even great in the first half themselves, but they were better than us, largely down to how we played. Second half, we just felt a little bit more relaxed and were able to play a little bit. So yeah, it's definitely the mindset of that first game at a World Cup. Certainly for the minor teams, which we would consider a minor team then going into that World Cup, was do not lose your first game, give yourself a chance. And if you do that, you do have a better chance, of course, in the last 2 games, because even if you lose the second game, you still have that point to fall back on. And if you lose the first 2, you're more or less gone. But you can then play for that 4 points, giving yourself a chance. If you've drawn or certainly not lost or won or drawn that first game, you give yourself a much better chance. Absolutely.
Definitely. Go for it, Chris.
Well, you were just I don't know what the words name drop in there, all the greats that you played against, but as a Manchester United guy, obviously these are dark times, but you played against the club during, I guess, really the last dark period of the team, that transitionary time where Fergie was trying to figure things out post Beckham, and drama times.
Yeah. Drama times. That was 2 years. That was 2 years.
Yeah, it was about 2 seasons. Early Champions League exit and all that.
I love listening to Man United fans now when they just don't realise what it's like to be a real football fan. You know, get real.
But this is it though.
Like to be the Tottenham fan.
But this is it. Looking back at some of those memories, like I always used to joke, yourself and Leighton Baines on the left used to fucking piss me off every time we played you guys. You guys were game raisers. And it was one of the thorns in an otherwise very, very boisterous Manchester United bush of the 2000s and early 2010. So I guess tell me about your preparation heading into a Manchester United game. Did you treat it different than another match? You were just talking about your international experience.
No,
so I guess
it's right.
Yep.
No, you're right. You think differently. No matter what anybody says, you think differently, and it's so wrong. Even when you think of yourself as a player, even switching into that mindset. But realistically, it's Man United. You play against the bigger sides, Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal, or whoever it is. It's a different mindset. Going to Old Trafford is special. No matter what anybody says, it's a special stadium. It's great to play in it. So it does change your mindset. I think you're more switched on earlier on in the week. So rather than getting yourself prepared on a Thursday and a Friday, like within the team structure that most teams would do, you're working on a team, obviously, on a structure towards the Saturday game if you're looking at it from a Monday point of view. But you only generally start to seriously switch on a Thursday and a Friday when you're doing proper teamwork. You're playing against Man United, you've got to get your head right. It's almost as soon as that game finishes on the Saturday or whenever you've played that last game, it's Man United coming around. And it does, your mindset whole changes. I've had games where we've gone to Old Trafford and played well and lost. We've gone to Old Trafford and played horrendously and lost badly. We've had it all. I've had it all. And certainly when Man United, when you're playing at Old Trafford, it's different than playing obviously as a home side against Man United, because you can be invigorated by the home support, and no matter what anyone says, it's so much easier for players now, by the way, playing with empty stadiums. It's so much easier, no matter what anybody says. That's why I think you're seeing so many goals. It's almost like a training ground practice match every single Premier League match now, because players can just try things that they'd never do. So when you go into Old Trafford, if you make a mistake against, you mentioned some of those players, against Beckham, Scholes, whatever it would be, you're punished quickly. And 1-0 can become 3 and 4-0 at the blink of an eye. It seemed in a game. I remember playing some games like that. I remember being at Old Trafford once. I was at Sunderland and we were 1-0 up, I think about the 85th minute, certainly the very latter stages of the game. 1-0 up, and we felt we played really well, good defensively. We felt we were carrying a threat going forward. And I think Beckham scored one. I think Matt got the equaliser, maybe even Scholes. One of the two got the equaliser, whatever it was. And they turned 1-0 down into 2-1. Injury time winner for Man United so quickly. It was a blink of an eye and it was 2 goals. And that's what I'm saying. It's you switch off, you think you've got a result, and they can punish you badly. That's what the best sides always do, of course. But Man United had that way about them, where mentally it was a grind until the 91st or 97th minute, whatever it was. They made you. If you were going to beat them, you had to earn that win. Badly had to earn that win, and it was so hard to get wins against them for that reason, because of the mentality that was probably going through that club.
The curse of Kilbane, huh?
Yeah. What's that? Sorry.
The curse of Kilbane.
I think I got one more. I cut out there for a second. I missed the end there. Can I add one more there quick, Anthony?
Yeah, go for it, man.
Well, it's just more about that time period. Like you guys, the 2004-05 season was, I mean, these guys that are playing right now remind me of you guys back then. And I know the following year, things obviously didn't work out well in Europe, but talk about that campaign. Like, you guys actually flirted with trying to do some things that Leicester City did a couple of years ago. So just talk about that unit and working for David Moyes, because, he gets stick for his stubbornness, but he's one of my favorite managers of all time. So kind of just get running with that team.
I mean, I knew David. I knew from when I was 15 years of age. He was the captain when I first started to progress at Preston. He was obviously a player. Then he was my coach. So I knew him for a long time, and he probably knew what I could do. So I was lucky enough that he signed me for Everton when he did. But that season, we'd come off the back of a poor campaign. I'd signed the season before, and things weren't going right. There was a talk of a takeover at the club. If the takeover went through, David Moyes would have absolutely lost his job. The manager would not have stayed at the club if the takeover went through. But Bill Kenwright managed to keep hold of the club, and he just had belief in David. He said to him, "Look, we've not got a big budget, we've not got a big squad for this season, but we need to get through this season. We need to work with what we've got." But if I think back to the side that we had and the characters that we have, you think about working with what you've got. We had Duncan Ferguson, Kevin Campbell, Alan Stubbs, David Weir, Lee Carsley, Steve Watson, Nigel Martin was our goalkeeper. We had some of the strongest characters that I've ever stepped into a dressing room with. So realistically, I think David Moyes' job, for all that he did a great job, I think it was made easy with the characters that he had within that dressing room. So we did, as I said before, we didn't have a big squad. We probably, most games would have, you could have picked the 11 players probably from 14 players. It was very, very little for David Moyes to work with and vary the actual starting 11 with. I think that helped us because we had a structure that we worked to, and we had a brilliant mindset, and we actually had brilliant footballers that we were maybe underplayed. We had Leon Osman, who came in, had a great career at Everton, who was a young, fabulous footballer who was coming in and starting to make an impression that season as well. And it was just one of those seasons where you look back and you think everything clicked. It was just perfect timing, perfect characters, perfect team, and it was a great season. And we played against the best sides, competed with them, of course, finishing fourth. We finished ahead of Liverpool, and then Liverpool went and won the Champions League, so they qualified for the Champions League themselves. So they rained on our parade again, didn't they, a little bit? But it was a great season. It was a great season.
Those Scouse bastards, man.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Anthony, brother. Cheers, Kevin.
It's funny. A couple of Everton fans had actually messaged me to ask you that question. So, Chris, thanks for that, man. So when we finish with the show, we just have a couple of kind of quick fire questions that we ask people. So, what's your favorite pub in Dublin?
Devitt's.
Tato or King?
Tato.
I lived right beside the Tato factory when I was in Dublin, and it was fucking amazing. If you're gonna have a 5-side tournament from the players you played with, who would be on your team?
Roy Keane, absolutely. Shea Given, absolutely. Oh, bloody hell. Good. Very good. Tommy Gravesen.
Wow, I forgot about him. That's a blast from the past. Sorry, Kevin. Sorry.
Yeah, he was a talent. Yeah, Tommy, Roy. Do I pick myself in that team?
If you want to, it's up to you.
Tommy, Roy, Shea, myself, and I'll put Robbie Keane up front. Yeah, there you go. Great
team. Go ahead, Carlos.
I normally ask one question, but I want to ask you like another one, just very quick. Robbie Keane or Roy Keane? Pick one.
Are you talking talent or what are you thinking? Roy's the best player I played with. I think he'd probably say himself. He maybe wasn't the most talented player, but in my opinion, personal opinion, I think he's the best player that's ever played in the Premier League. I think he would, if I was going to pick one team, Roy Keane would be first pick out of every player that's ever played in the Premier League. Honestly, incredible footballer. His mind to speed up and slow down the game was incredible. Everyone talks it. You know. Man United fans everywhere all over the world talk about Paul Scholes. Fantastic, don't get me wrong, brilliant footballer. But I would pick Roy Keane ahead of Paul Scholes every single day of the week. Honestly,
I'll pick him too because I'm a big fan of Roy Keane, but also it's just there's many talented players that you see on the pitch, but when you have a talented player and plays with this and with this, it's just that total package, and to me, Roy Keane one of those. When you play, pick just your favorite three positions. Your favorite three players that you have played with in your position.
Three players that I played alongside. Talent-wise, I think probably Damien Duff was probably the most talented player that I would have played alongside. Incredible talent. Robbie Keane and Wayne Rooney, probably they'd be maybe three. I'd look at.
Wow,
not too shabby.
Go for it, Chris. I'm speechless.
That was actually like my last question, so I'll ask that before I ask my typical ones. What was that like working with Wayne, like the baby? You saw it from the start.
Wayne, exactly 17. When Wayne was incredible. Honestly, a desire to train and be the best every single day, but also with the talent. Wayne was honestly, he was an animal. He was a beast at 16. I've never seen anything like him for pace, for power, for his ability to do things as well that nobody else could do. He was a phenomenon, an absolute phenomenon. And maybe looking back at it, people have said about him maybe underachieved in his career. How can you underachieve when you become Man United's leading goal scorer, England's leading goal scorer? To say things like that is crazy. Wayne was honestly absolutely phenomenal. And I think maybe in the latter part of his career, maybe when he was playing at Man United, I think he played that many games because, and you know what, with Wayne, it wasn't just the amount of games that he played. Wayne trained every single day. Like most players, maybe at the level of Wayne as well, would have always taken a Monday and a Tuesday off just to get the body prepared. Wayne wouldn't have that. Wayne wanted to train every single day and train at 100% every single training session. So that was why he went on to have the career he had, but also he had the natural talent as well. So yeah, he was a phenomenon, absolute phenomenon. Yeah.
Yeah. Cheers. I guess back when you're playing career, your pregame meal, is there any kind of snack that you munched on before a game or anything to kind of get you?
I wasn't really a foodie. Honestly, I wasn't. I would have eaten the general things that most players would eat. Chicken, pastas, all that sort of thing. Guinness, yeah. Not after a Friday evening, no. A Friday evening for playing a Saturday, Yeah. I used to limit myself. I would always have 6 hours after my last party Guinness before I was going to play a game. So yeah.
6 hours?
Standards.
6 hours and 2 naps.
Honestly, yeah. It could have been 5 sometimes, but no, it was 6. It was always 6.
Awesome.
No, food-wise, honestly, I generally didn't. I was lucky. He was saying that, I did like my pint of Guinness as well, even when I was playing, but I was always a sort of professional. It would have been at the right time. I used to follow good diets. I used to follow, an alcohol policy, which would absolutely never drink before I was training the day after. Maybe on a Saturday after the game, I would have had a couple of beers. Maybe on a Sunday, if I had a Monday off. But no, I was very professional in that one because the game changed. And when I came in, Arsene Wenger changed English football in 95, I think it was 96 when he got the job. And that was my era coming into it, where that filtered through English football. And we were then fully professional probably from that age, from my age at 16 and 17. So I was lucky that, that I came into the new age of modern football. So it was good.
What's in your headphones before a game? A certain artist or a song or something that gets you hyped? Or
do you know what? I would have always listened to, Anthony will be familiar with it. I would have always listened to all the Irish Rebel music. Always listened to that. That's what I brought up. That's what I was brought up with from when I was a kid. I'd be big into Britpop at the time, Oasis, Richard Ashcroft, Verve, or anything like that. That was probably me. I would listen to that type of music, yeah. But I am quite free-spirited, so I'd listen to anything, honestly.
Right on. And my last one is superstition. So is there something like that last
No,
thing?
I didn't believe anyone that got superstitions. We had one lad, I always remember when I was a kid, 16 at Preston, right? And he used to make the physio come over with a tie-up for him. And he used to have to hand him one tie-up with his left hand. And then he'd put it on and he'd have to hand the next one with his right hand. He'd put that on. He'd hand him his boots. And I was like, if I ever get myself like that, I'll actually go crazy. So no, I just thought, I'm never going to have any superstitions. I just do what I do, try and repeat what you're doing week in, week out, but have no superstitions. So no, I didn't have them. People have superstitions are crazy. Footballers are crazy, don't get me wrong, and goalkeepers are especially crazy. But no, I didn't want to have that in my mindset, no.
Cheers. Before I hand it on to Anthony, man, this was a dream come true. Like I said, you guys used to drive me wild on weekends as a Manchester United supporter, and
Thank you.
I'm sure you guys even drove Anthony Spurs crazy, but those guys used to drive us crazy too back then. We had to steal Michael Carrick from them.
Thank you. Honestly, cheers. Thank you for having me on. It's been great. Thank you.
So yeah, man, it's a bucket list for me. So I really appreciate you doing this.
Not about it.
I did see on your Insta story last week that you were playing a bit of ball in Ontario. How did that go?
Yeah, I've been enjoying. I've been getting a couple of games in here and there. I mentioned before, my back isn't the best. That's what I finish with, and I did my calf when I played the other day. But it's starting to get a bit cold now, so we're moving on to the indoor season. So I'm going to try and get a few games across the winter time now, get some of the indoor games. But it was good. I enjoy it. You know, some of the lads out here. There's a few lads that would play on our side that are English lads that would have had scholarships in the US, and a couple of lads met Canadian girls and they've moved up here, up this way. So they played at decent levels as well themselves. There's one lad that plays on our side. A lad that played against us actually played at, I think it was at St Mirren. I think he played up in Scotland anyway. So you get random players playing the league, you know. So it's great. You get a decent standard of players, and it's great just to get a run out here and there. So it's nice, yeah.
It'd be kind of crazy, like going up to a game and looking across and there's fucking Kevin Kilbane. You know what I mean? It's like
most of the lads don't have a clue, so it's quite good to play. You know, it's good.
They brought a banger. So man, yeah, I really appreciate it. It's been amazing. I really appreciate you doing this. And
Anthony, pleasure, absolute pleasure. Honestly, thank you. Thanks for having me.
And if you need anything while you're here in Canada, I have a secret stash of Tato and Barry's team, man, so I can hook you up. All right,
no, I'm a Lions team. You never asked me that question. I'm a Lions team, man. There you go.
It's actually on my list. All right, man. Thanks, Mill. Have a great night.
Cheers, lads. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.